The Intergalactic Academy of Higher Learning prided itself on being the most diverse educational institution in the known universe. Its halls buzzed with the chatter of 1,000 different species, each with their own unique biology, culture, and perspective. But even in this melting pot of galactic diversity, some differences were more striking than others. Zara X, a Luminian from the gas giant Aurelius Prime, floated serenely down the Academy's main corridor. Her translucent, bioluminescent body pulsed with a soft blue glow, reflecting her calm state of mind. It was the first day of the new academic cycle, and Zara was looking forward to her xenobiology class. As she drifted into the classroom, her sensory tendrils picked up an unusual level of nervous energy from her fellow students. Curious, she approached her friend Glix, a Mercurian whose Mercury-like body was currently shaped into a vaguely humanoid form. "What's gotten everyone so agitated?" Zara pulsed, her bioluminescence flickering in a pattern that translated to speech. Glix's liquid surface rippled with excitement. "Haven't you heard? We're getting a new student today, a Deathworlder." Zara felt her own energy field fluctuate with surprise. Deathworlders were rare in galactic society, their home planets so harsh and unforgiving that most species could scarcely comprehend how life could evolve there at all. To have one at the Academy, it was unprecedented. "Which species?" Zara asked, her curiosity piqued. "Human," Glix whispered, his form quivering slightly. "From Earth." A hush fell over the classroom as the door slid open. Professor Xylo, a towering insectoid being, entered first. Behind him walked a creature that made every student in the room instinctively recoil. The human was smaller than Zara had expected, standing only about 2 meters tall. Its body was solid, encased in a strange outer shell of artificial fibers that covered most of its form. 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head with a shockingly limited number of sensory organs. But what struck Zara most was the way it moved, with a fluid grace that seemed to defy its solid structure. "Class," Professor Xylo's mandibles clicked as he spoke, his words translated by the room's universal translator. "Please welcome our new student, Alex Chen from Earth. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself?" The human stepped forward, and Zara was surprised to see its face contort into what she would later learn was a smile. "Hi, everyone," Alex said, his voice surprisingly soft. "I'm Alex. I'm really excited to be here and learn about all of your species. I hope we can all be friends." A murmur ran through the class. Friends with a Deathworlder? The very idea seemed absurd to most of the students. As Alex took a seat in a specially reinforced chair, Zara noticed, Professor Xylo began the day's lesson on comparative alien physiologies. But Zara found it hard to concentrate. Her gaze kept drifting back to Alex, studying the strange, solid creature who had so casually walked into their midst. She noticed how he seemed to constantly be in motion, even when sitting still. His chest rose and fell in a rhythmic pattern, and occasionally he would shift in his seat or move his upper limbs in gestures that accompanied his speech. It was so different from the energy-efficient stillness most species practiced. As the class progressed, Zara found herself becoming more and more intrigued by the human. There was something about Alex that didn't quite fit with the terrifying stories she'd heard about Deathworlders. He seemed gentle, almost fragile compared to some of the other species in the room. Little did Zara know that her perception, and that of the entire academy, was about to be radically changed. For the next class on their schedule was one that would reveal just how appearances could be deceiving when it came to Deathworlders. As Professor Xylo dismissed the class, he made an announcement that sent a ripple of unease through the students. "Remember, everyone, next period is physical education. All students are required to participate, including our new arrival." Zara felt a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Physical education was always an interesting experience, given the diverse physiologies of the student body. But with a Deathworlder in the mix, she couldn't even begin to imagine what might happen. Content from previous sections remains the same. As they continued to chat, more students began to drift over to their table. A photonic being named Lux, whose body was composed entirely of coherent light, approached cautiously. "Excuse me," Lux flickered, her light-based form shimmering with curiosity, "but I couldn't help overhearing. Did you say humans climb mountains for fun?" Alex nodded, his eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. Absolutely. There's something incredible about pushing yourself to the limit, feeling the burn in your muscles as you conquer a peak that's challenged you. The view from the top makes all the struggle worth it. The gathered aliens exchanged looks of bewilderment and fascination. The idea of voluntarily subjecting oneself to physical hardship for enjoyment was utterly foreign to most of them. But why? Asked a gravitian named Neutro, whose dense, compact form exerted its own significant gravitational pull. Surely there are less dangerous ways to achieve satisfaction. Alex paused, considering the question. I suppose it's about testing our limits, proving to ourselves what we're capable of. There's a quote from a famous Earth explorer, because it's there. Sometimes the challenge itself is the reward. As the conversation continued, Zara noticed a subtle shift in the atmosphere. The initial fear and apprehension towards Alex were giving way to genuine curiosity and even admiration. Students who had recoiled from him earlier were now leaning in, eager to hear more about human feats and philosophies. But not everyone seemed pleased with this development. From across the cafeteria, Zara's sensory tendrils detected a cold, hostile energy. She turned to see Zox Vel, a Superioran from a highly advanced world, glaring at their table. The Superiorans had long considered themselves the pinnacle of galactic evolution, and Zara had a feeling they didn't appreciate the attention this primitive human was receiving. As if sensing her gaze, Zoxvel's eyes met Zara's. A chill ran through her gaseous form at the malevolence she saw there. She had a sinking feeling that Alex's integration into academy life might not be as smooth as it was currently appearing. Her concerns were momentarily forgotten as Alex's voice drew her attention back to the conversation. Hey, I have an idea, he was saying, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Why don't we start a cross-species sports club? We could each share physical activities from our homeworlds and figure out ways to adapt them so everyone can participate. The suggestion was met with a chorus of enthusiastic agreement. Even Glix, who had been so startled by Alex's display earlier, was nodding his liquid metal head in approval. That's a fantastic idea. Zara pulsed, her bioluminescence brightening with excitement. It could be a great way for all of us to learn more about each other's physiologies and cultures. As the group began to excitedly discuss possibilities for the club, Zara couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. Perhaps Alex's presence at the academy wasn't just a curiosity or a potential source of conflict. Maybe it was an opportunity for genuine understanding and cooperation between wildly different species. But even as she allowed herself to be caught up in the enthusiasm, a part of her remained aware of Zoxvel's hostile gaze from across the room. The universe, she knew, often had a way of complicating even the most promising of situations. The rest of the lunch period passed in a whirlwind of excited conversation and planning. As they prepared to head to their afternoon classes, Alex turned to Zara with a grateful smile. Thanks for this, he said softly. I was pretty nervous about how I'd fit in here. It means a lot to have made some friends. Zara felt a warm pulse run through her gaseous form. We're glad to have you here, Alex. I have a feeling you're going to teach us all a lot. As they left the cafeteria, none of them noticed the small spider-like drone that detached itself from the ceiling and scuttled after them. Its single lens focused on Alex, recording his every move and transmitting the data to an unknown receiver. The afternoon classes passed without incident, but there was a palpable change in the atmosphere of the academy. Students who had previously given Alex a wide berth were now approaching him between classes, asking questions about Earth and human culture. Even some of the faculty seemed to be eyeing him with newfound interest. As the final class of the day ended, Professor Xylo held Alex back. Zara, curious, lingered by the door. Mr. Chen, the insectoid professor clicked, I must say, your performance in physical education today was most impressive. I wonder if you might be interested in assisting with some research I'm conducting on comparative xenobiology. Alex's face lit up. I'd be honored, Professor. I'm always eager to learn more about other species. As Alex left the classroom, practically bouncing with excitement, Zara felt a mix of emotions. She was happy for her new friend, but she couldn't shake a nagging feeling of unease. Things were moving very quickly, and she couldn't help but wonder if they were all unprepared for the consequences of a human's arrival at the academy. Her concerns were justified, for at that very moment, in a hidden chamber deep within the academy's sub-levels, a group of shadowy figures were gathering. Their agenda, to discuss the threat posed by the Deathworlder in their midst, and to plan how to neutralize it. The game of cosmic chess had begun, and Alex unknowingly was at the center of the board. The moves made in the coming days would have repercussions that would echo across the galaxy for years to come. As Zara floated back to her dormitory, her mind swirling with the events of the day, she made a silent promise to herself. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would stand by her new friend. The universe was changing, and she intended to be on the right side of that change. Little did she know just how soon that promise would be put to the test. The next few weeks at the Intergalactic Academy were a whirlwind of activity and change. The cross-species sports club, unofficially dubbed Galactic Gym Buddies by an enthusiastic Alex, had taken off beyond anyone's expectations. Students from all corners of the known universe were coming together to share their unique physical cultures and abilities. Zara found herself at the heart of this cultural exchange, often acting as a mediator between species with wildly different physiologies and perspectives. She watched with pride as Alex demonstrated human sports like basketball and soccer, adapting the rules on the fly to accommodate levitating, phasing, or multi-limbed participants. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The more popular Alex became, the more Zara noticed the undercurrent of tension running through certain segments of the Academy population. The Superior faction, led by Zoxville, had become increasingly vocal in their criticism of what they called the Deathworlder obsession. It was after one particularly successful Galactic Gym Buddies session that Zara overheard a conversation that sent a chill through her gaseous form. She was floating down a corridor, her natural bioluminescence dimmed to blend with the ambient lighting, when she heard Zoxville's distinctive sneering tone coming from a partially open classroom door. "This has gone on long enough," Zoxville was saying. "The human is disrupting the natural order of the Academy. It's time we took action." "But what can we do?" another voice responded, one Zara recognized as belonging to Crix, a silicoid known for his hardline views on species superiority. "The faculty seems enamored with the Deathworlder, and more students join his little club every day." "We have our ways," Zoxville replied, a sinister edge to his voice. "The Superior and Enclave has friends in high places. We've received authorization to proceed with Plan Omega." Zara felt her energy field fluctuate wildly. Plan Omega? It sounded ominous, to say the least. She was so focused on eavesdropping that she almost didn't notice the approaching footsteps until it was too late. Quickly she shifted her form to mimic a wandering gas cloud, a common sight in the Academy's varied atmospheric zones. She drifted away just as the classroom door fully opened, revealing Zoxville and his cohorts. The Superior's eyes narrowed as they swept the corridor, but finding nothing obviously out of place, he led his group away in the opposite direction. Zara waited until they were out of sight before resuming her normal form, her mind racing. She had to warn Alex. But would he believe her? And even if he did, what could they do against a plan backed by the mysterious Superior and Enclave? Lost in thought, she didn't notice the figure approaching until a familiar voice broke through her reverie. "Zara, are you okay? You look, well, as troubled as a being made of gas can look." She turned to find Alex standing there, concern etched on his features. For a moment, Zara marveled at how quickly she'd learned to read human facial expressions. Then the gravity of what she'd overheard came crashing back. "Alex," she pulsed urgently, her bioluminescence flickering rapidly. "We need to talk, somewhere private." Picking up on her serious tone, Alex nodded. "My dorm room is nearby. Will that work?" Moments later, they were in Alex's quarters, a space that had been specially modified to accommodate his unique physiological needs. Zara noticed the higher gravity setting, the sturdier furniture, and what appeared to be exercise equipment in one corner. "What's going on, Zara?" Alex asked as soon as the door closed behind them. "You're really worrying me." Zara recounted what she'd overheard, watching as Alex's expression shifted from concern to disbelief, and then to a grim determination she'd never seen before. I knew some students were uncomfortable with me being here, he said quietly. But I never thought it would come to this. What do you think this Plan Omega could be? Zara's form shimmered with anxiety. I don't know, but coming from the Superiorans, it can't be good. They've always believed in their own superiority, but lately they've been pushing for more extreme measures to preserve galactic purity, whatever that means. Alex paced the room, his movements reminding Zara of the predatory grace she'd witnessed in the gymnasium. We need more information, and allies. We can't face this alone. Zara pulsed in agreement. The galactic gym buddies. Many of them have come to respect and even admire you, Alex. They might be willing to help. A small smile flickered across Alex's face. You know, back on Earth, we have stories about underdogs banding together to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. Never thought I'd be living one of those stories in space. As they began to plan their next moves, neither of them noticed the tiny, nearly invisible drone hovering outside Alex's window. Its sophisticated sensors recorded every word of their conversation, transmitting the data to a hidden receiver deep within the academy. In that secret subterranean chamber, Zoxvul watched a holographic replay of Alex and Zara's conversation. His face contorted into a snarl of disgust. So, he hissed to the shadowy figures surrounding him, the Deathworlder and his pet gas cloud think they can thwart our plans. It seems we'll need to accelerate the timeline. One of the figures stepped forward, its form shrouded in a light-bending cloak. Is that wise? The Enclave advised caution. Zoxvul's eyes flashed dangerously. The Enclave is not here. They do not see the corruption spreading through our hallowed institution. We will proceed immediately. Initiate the first phase of Plan Omega. As the chamber erupted into activity, Zoxvul allowed himself a cold smile. Soon the natural order would be restored. The Deathworlder would be expelled, its corrupt influence purged, and the Superioran vision of a pure, advanced galactic society would be one step closer to reality. Little did he know that his actions were about to set in motion a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of the Intergalactic Academy and perhaps the entire galactic community. Back in Alex's room, as he and Zara continued to strategize, a sudden piercing alarm shattered the quiet of the Academy night. Emergency lights began to pulse, and a computerized voice echoed through the corridors. Attention all students and faculty. This is not a drill. A Level 9 containment breach has been detected in the Xenobiology Research Wing. All non-emergency personnel must evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Alex and Zara exchanged a look of dawning horror. The Xenobiology Wing, where Professor Xylo had been conducting his research with Alex's help. It's starting, Zara pulsed, her bioluminescence dim with fear. Alex's jaw set in a determined line. Then we'd better be ready. Whatever they're planning, Zara, we're going to face it together. As they rushed out to face the unfolding crisis, neither of them could have imagined the true scale of the conflict they were about to be thrust into. A conflict that would test not just Alex's incredible physical abilities, but the very notions of friendship, acceptance, and what it means to be part of a galactic community. The game was afoot, and the stakes were nothing less than the future of interspecies cooperation in the known universe. The corridors of the Intergalactic Academy had transformed into a scene of pandemonium. Students of all species were streaming towards the designated evacuation points, their varied forms of movement creating a surreal, chaotic ballet. Crystalline beings clattered alongside amorphous slime molds, while anti-gravity bubbles containing gaseous entities bobbed above the crowd. Alex and Zara moved against the tide, pushing towards the Xenobiology Wing. Alex's powerful strides and Zara's ability to flow through small spaces allowed them to make steady progress. But the going was tough. Alex, a familiar voice called out. They turned to see Glix, the Mercurian, flowing towards them in a state of agitation. What's going on? Why aren't you evacuating? We think this might be more than just an accident, Alex explained quickly. We're going to check it out. Want to come? Glix's liquid metal form rippled with indecision for a moment before solidifying into a determined shape. Count me in. You two have shown me what real friendship looks like. I won't let you face this alone. As they neared the Xenobiology Wing, the crowds thinned out, replaced by the ominous whine of malfunctioning equipment and the acrid smell of burning circuitry. Emergency force fields flickered erratically, struggling to contain whatever had been released. They rounded a corner and came face to face with Professor Xylo. The insectoid being's exoskeleton was scorched in several places, and one of his compound eyes was cracked. "Professor," Zara pulsed in alarm, "what happened?" Xylo's mandibles clicked rapidly in distress. "It was sabotage. Someone released the Omega strain, all my failsafes bypassed. It's loose in the lab, growing, evolving. We need to contain it before—" A bone-chilling screech cut through the air, followed by the sound of rending metal. Something massive was moving behind the reinforced doors of the main lab. "What exactly is the Omega strain, Professor?" Alex asked, his body instinctively shifting into a defensive stance. Xylo's uninjured eyes focused on Alex with a mix of fear and regret. It was supposed to be the next step in adaptive biology, a programmable organism that could rapidly evolve to survive in any environment. But in its current state, it's unstable, hostile. It will consume everything in its path, adapting to overcome any obstacle. The implications hit Zara like a plasma storm. "You mean—" "Yes," Xylo confirmed grimly. "The more we fight it, the stronger it becomes." Another crash echoed from the lab, closer this time. The reinforced door bulged outward, stressed metal groaning in protest. "We need to evacuate," Glick said, his liquid form quivering with fear, but Alex stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the straining door. "Number—" "If this thing escapes the Academy, it could threaten the entire station, maybe even the sector. We need to stop it here." "But how?" Zara pulsed frantically. "You heard the professor. It adapts to whatever we throw at it." As they filed out of the classroom, Zara noticed Alex lingering behind, carefully packing away some sort of primitive information storage devices. Books, she'd heard them called. On an impulse she couldn't quite explain, she drifted over to him. "Hello," she pulsed, her translator converting her bioluminescent patterns into speech. "I'm Zara X. Welcome to the Academy." Alex looked up, that strange facial contortion. "Smile," she reminded herself, appearing again. "Hi, Zara X. It's nice to meet you. I love how you glow. It's beautiful." Zara felt her energy field flutter at the unexpected compliment. "Thank you," she pulsed, her glow intensifying slightly. I hope you don't mind me asking, but aren't you nervous about physical education? Given your solid structure?" Alex chuckled, a sound that Zara found oddly pleasant. "Nervous? No, not really. I'm actually looking forward to it. On Earth, I was on my school's swimming team." Zara's sensory tendrils quivered with confusion. Swimming. Team. These were concepts she'd have to research later. But before she could ask for clarification, the warning chime sounded, indicating it was time to move to their next class. "We'd better get going," Alex said, slinging a bag over his shoulder with casual ease. "Don't want to be late for gym class." As they made their way to the gymnasium, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that they were all in for a surprise. The human's confidence was puzzling, given what she knew about their fragile physiology. But there was something in Alex's eyes, a glint of excitement, perhaps even anticipation, that made her wonder if perhaps they had all underestimated what a Deathworlder was truly capable of. Little did she know, the next hour would change everything she thought she understood about the nature of life in the galaxy, and her own place in it. The Intergalactic Academy's gymnasium was a marvel of xenoengineering. Designed to accommodate the vast array of physiologies represented in the student body, it was less a single space and more a complex of interconnected environments. There were anti-gravity chambers for species used to low-G environments, high-pressure zones for deep-sea dwellers, and even a plasma containment field for energy beings. The main area, however, was a large open space with a floor that could alter its composition and firmness to suit different types of locomotion. As Zara X floated into the gymnasium alongside Alex, she noticed the other students giving them a wide berth. Whispers and nervous glances followed in their wake. She could sense the apprehension in the air, thick enough that even her non-empathic sensory tendrils could pick it up. Coach Zorblax, a being composed entirely of swirling gases contained within a semi-permeable force field, materialized in the center of the room. His booming voice, projected through a series of carefully modulated vibrations, filled the space. All right, class. Today we're going to start with some basic cardio exercises to get everyone's circulatory systems, or equivalent metabolic processes, warmed up. Then we'll move on to strength training and flexibility work. Remember, the goal is to push your own physiological limits, not to compete with others. A collective groan rose from the assembled students. Physical education was rarely anyone's favorite subject, given the challenges of finding activities that could accommodate such a diverse group. Now, Zorblax continued, his gaseous form swirling with what might have been excitement. We have a new student joining us today. Alex Chen from Earth, please step forward. All eyes, sensory stalks, and perceptual organs turned to Alex. The human stepped forward, still wearing that enigmatic smile. Zara noticed he had changed into different attire, short coverings for his lower limbs and a loose upper garment. His feet were encased in strange, flexible shells. Alex, Zorblax addressed him directly. I understand that humans have some unique physical capabilities. Would you mind demonstrating a typical Earth warm-up routine for the class? It might give us all some new ideas for cross-species exercises. Alex's smile widened. Sure thing, coach. Happy to. What happened next would be seared into Zara's memory for the rest of her life. Alex started with something he called jumping jacks. His solid body began to move in ways that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. He leapt repeatedly, his arms and legs spreading and coming together in a rhythmic pattern. The speed and coordination of his movements were astounding. Many of the students recoiled in shock. Some emitted high-pitched squeals of alarm. Glix, the Mercurian, was so startled that he momentarily lost cohesion, splitting into several mercury droplets before hastily reforming. But Alex wasn't done. He dropped to the floor, a movement so sudden that several students instinctively activated emergency shield protocols and began doing what he called push-ups. Using just his upper limbs, he repeatedly lifted and lowered his entire body weight. Zara felt her energy field fluctuate wildly as she watched. The sheer strength required for such a movement was difficult for her to comprehend, and the strain it must be putting on his solid internal structure, it was almost painful to think about. Next came sit-ups, where Alex lay on his back and repeatedly bent his body at the middle, lifting his upper half off the ground. The flex and stretch of his abdominal muscles were visible even through his clothing, a sight that was both fascinating and slightly horrifying to the watching aliens. But it was the final part of Alex's warm-up that truly shocked everyone. He stood up, took a deep breath, and then began to run. Not a sedate jog, but a full-out sprint across the length of the gymnasium. His feet pounded against the floor, the impact sending vibrations through the adaptive surface that Zara could feel even as she floated above it. The speed was incredible. Alex's form blurred as he raced from one end of the vast room to the other, pivoting sharply at each wall to change direction. He kept this up for several minutes, barely seeming to tire. When he finally came to a stop in front of the stunned class, Alex was breathing heavily, but still smiling. Beads of liquid had formed on his skin, sweat Zara recalled from her xenobiology lessons. A cooling mechanism, but one that spoke to the intense energy expenditure of his exercise. So, Alex said, his voice only slightly winded, "That's a basic warm-up. What's next, coach?" The gymnasium was silent. Even Coach Zorblax seemed at a loss for words, his gaseous form swirling in patterns that suggested deep confusion and possibly a touch of awe. Zara looked around at her fellow students. The expressions of shock, fear, and disbelief were universal. In just a few minutes, Alex had shattered every preconception they had about human physiology. But as Zara turned back to Alex, she saw something in his eyes that gave her pause. Behind the friendly smile and the casual demeanor, there was a flicker of loneliness, uncertainty. She realized with a start that Alex was just as nervous as the rest of them, perhaps even more so. He was alone here, surrounded by beings utterly alien to him, trying his best to fit in. In that moment, Zara made a decision that would change the course of her academic career, and though she didn't know it yet, the future of galactic society. She floated forward, her bioluminescence pulsing in a pattern of friendly greeting. "That was amazing, Alex," she said, her translator conveying genuine admiration. "Do you think you could teach some of us how to do those exercises?" Alex's smile transformed, becoming somehow warmer, more real. "I'd love to, Zara. But you might need to teach me some of your exercises too. I've got a lot to learn about how other species stay fit." As other students began to cautiously approach, their curiosity overcoming their fear, Zara felt a sense of excitement building within her. This wasn't just a gym class anymore. It was the beginning of something new, a bridge being built between worlds that had always seemed incompatible. Little did any of them know the real challenges and the true tests of their newfound understanding were yet to come. For in the vast, uncaring universe, there are always forces that fear change and seek to maintain the old order.